and you'll see the trail going through. Well, you're in section 22, and you're at the cemetery, the Fellsmere Brookside Cemetery. And if you'll look at this closely, you'll see a little railroad grade that ran and still runs all the way out from Sebastian to Fellsmere. It's an abandoned railroad grade that's going to be a rails to trails.
What I wanted to tell you about out here in the cemetery, first of all, the cemetery is here because, like I said before, the water table is so high, and apparently they've had problems too, because you see those above ground crypts out there and I've talked to the guys in Public Works, and they've had some problems with that. In our heavy rains, we have these low pressure systems that come in here once in a while, and it'll just rain and rain and rain, and the drainage can't take care of it. So they've had problems. They've had to come out and do repair work on some of the graves here in the cemetery. This was the older part. Now that's the oldest, where you were up there on the hill. That's where most of those people that are buried up there were the workers at the sawmill. And then they developed this, and now the newer part is over on the other side over there. So, and it's an active cemetery. They bury people out here all the time. But one of my favorite things that happened, it was back when I was mayor. We started cleaning up the cemetery. One of the things we had to do out here, we put a fence around it, put gates up, because some of the kids were into this devil worship stuff. And they were coming out here and doing all kinds of things on those crypts out there. And they were breaking all of the nameplates off of them. A lot of them got the nameplates missing. We know who they are. I mean, who's buried there, because we've got a chart with all that information on it. But anyhow, they were coming out here at night and doing this devil worship stuff. So we fenced it. The beautification committee did. We got donations, and the farm out there gave us the gates, and they actually brought a tractor with an auger and dug the holes and put the fence posts up for us. So our most, I don't know, famous or notorious is that big tombstone right over there. It says Nuremberg on there, and if you got one of those handouts, it said Count and Countess. And we just found out just recently there was a guy by the name of Rich Potapka that lives over in Sebastian. He's a history buff, and he does a lot of research, and he did some checking on them, and the Count really wasn't a count. They were from Europe, and his father was a baron, and he just gave himself the title of Count. And the lady that's buried over there was not his first wife. His first wife died, and she's buried up in, I think they were from up in Connecticut, and he met this lady who was a waitress in a restaurant, fell in love, and they did get married, and he made her a countess. So, and she's buried over here. They lived in Fellsmere for a while before she died. After she died, then he went back up north, and he buried her out here, and he went back up north and died sometime later, and they shipped his body down and buried him here. And there was a family living up in Titusville, and they read the article, and they came down one day, and they said that we lived in Fellsmere back in the 20s, and their mother, I guess the father had left her with 8 kids, and they were very, very poor, and their little sister got sick and died, and they buried her here in the cemetery. The older brother made a coffin for her, and they moved away. Well, these sisters were, 2 of them were in their 90s, and one of them had her daughter. Her daughter was up in her late 60s, and they wanted to know if there was any way we could find where their sister was buried out here. They wanted to do a headstone for her, and we got out our chart of where people were buried, and lo and behold, it was there. And so they said, okay, we would like to put a headstone there if it's all right. And of course, we welcomed them. They went away for a while, and then they contacted us one day and said they were ready to put the headstone in, and we could set it up for them. And then these ladies, when they came down from Titusville, they brought their pastor from their church, And that little headstone right over there is where that little girl is buried. So, and we had a really nice ceremony. Like I said, about 25 people showed up for it. It's just, I think, one of the nicer things that we did. One of the more interesting persons that I never knew the man, I think I might have shook and howdied with him one day or so. My brother worked with him, was a guy by the name of Gilbert Markowski. And his family's buried way back in that corner back there. He was one of the pioneers. He came over here. He was from over in the central part of the state. And he came to Fellsmere when he was 19 years old, and he got a job working on one of the dredges. They had there 3 big dredges out there where they were digging canals out west of what is now the town of Fellsmere. And he was working on the dredge, and he lived at the hotel, the Fellsmere Inn, which has recently been restored, and we hope we're going to get that open. He stayed there, and the guy that owned the Fellsmere Inn had a daughter about his age, by the name of Grace, and Gilbert and Grace fell in love and started dating. And one of the things that they took an interest in, they were building the Fellsmere School then. This was in 1915. And every afternoon when Gilbert would get off from work, well, he'd get in and get cleaned up and have supper, and he and Grace would go down to the building site and check on the progress that they were making with the school. And when they got the school built, I got this from the family, Gilbert managed to get a key to the front door, and when they opened the school, he unlocked the door and let the kids in. Well, he went on, and Mr. Gilbert, he went on. He's kept an interest in that school all of his life. He eventually became a member of the school board, and in 1982, they closed the school for the last time. They had built a new elementary school on Cypress Street there, and they had the kids bring their books, and they made a circle around the flagpole. The janitor took the flag down, and they marched the kids off to the new elementary school, and Mr. Gilbert locked the door on the school for the last time. And he died a couple of years later. But, like I said, I never did get to meet him, and I'm sorry I did. You know, we miss so much of our history because we're charging around trying to we're just trying to make a living, I guess. And I never did get a chance to talk with him, and I would have really enjoyed it.